Over the past 20 years, there have been dramatic changes in the media. The combination of radio, TV, and print has given way to more options with opportunities and hazards. Our guest is trying to help young people understand the new media and use them for their needs and aspirations. He does this through a media literacy movement called The Message, and we'd like to welcome its director, Juma Innis. Thank you very much for being with us, Juma.
Thank you for having me.
So this sounds like something that it's almost inevitable that somebody is doing this, but why is it you?
Yeah, I ask myself that question every day, right? So my journey started in hip hop. Actually, I'm a recording artist and a producer. So music led me to civic engagement. I used to go to youth detention centers and do concerts for the young people, and then I wound up working with the same population in another context, and that just turned into a series of engagement, deep-seated and deep-rooted engagements with young people. And what became apparent to me was the profound effect that media has in and on their lives. I mean, it's something we recognize in the abstract, but what these experiences granted me was a direct bird's eye view into how television, music has a direct impact on how they think, how they feel, how they behave, and ultimately contribute to public health crises.
Well, hip-hop, it has the potential to be a great power of critical thinking and vision, but it can also be something else. And I guess you're disturbed by the something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's unfortunate. You know, like anything, music, hip-hop, pop, rock, they're all tools, right? There's no evil hammer and there's no evil nail. There's just, there are unfortunate times where there are people constructing messages that are not the healthiest and not the best for our young people.
One thing that I have to admit that I would probably share with the most uninformed people confronting media is that it's addictive, and
Absolutely.
The feed swallows you, and that's your notion of the DJ, maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you know, it's funny. There's numerous studies that have been done on the effect of social media in terms of its addictive quality, right? So it actually triggers a dopamine release when you go to check a notification, you know, whether you've been notified on Facebook, Twitter, or, you know, whether someone's liked your picture on Instagram, that kind of thing. It actually triggers a dopamine release. And so you keep coming back for that dopamine release. So there's an actual biochemical connection and neurological even connection that happens as a result of media use.
And I'm going to translate that into your music video, and we'll give an excerpt right here.
Very serious. Until the DJ is gone, turn the radio off, turn the radio off, so now we can get...
Turn the radio off for my DJ's on and play that jam back, cause that's my song. Let it hit on till the party's over, till the morning comes and then we start it over. Man, we hardly sober, make noise in the place like a Harley motor as we numb to the drum of the status quota. Yeah, drunken culture, can't see the flames, can't smell the sofa. The roof's on fire now, so ain't the floor. Turn the heat up, let it rock some more. Just close my mind and lock the door and just magnetize, we gon' draw some more.
Well, what's the difference between our discussing this verbally and what you show in this video?
So our discussing this now is I mean, I'm talking to you, right? During the presentations, they're base level conversations.
And you're talking to high school students a lot of the time, right?
Right. So I'm just meeting folks where they are, and we're just having honest, real conversations about these things that are really important to them. They have tremendous implications for their future. When you think of, take for instance, personal branding, right? Social media plays a huge role in how you present yourself and position yourself to future employers. So, you know, from soup to nuts, this is something that is tremendously important for young people in every facet and asset of their lives. So.
Talk about how the media influences, because, you know, if I listen to country music, I'm the truck driver. If I listen to hip hop, you know, I'm the gangster in the hood. And those are useful constructs in a way,
Sure, sure.
but they can be very limiting too.
Sure, sure. Well, take for instance, we have a gun crisis in the United States, right? Well, it's no coincidence that the average American sees upwards of 200,000 acts of violence and aggression by the time they're 18 years old, right? There's a study that found that seeing violent acts over and over again, it actually suppresses the part in the brain that's responsible for self-control, right? So you put all these things together and then you add all these socioeconomic variants, natural chemical imbalances, and it's no wonder we have a gun crisis in this country. So just as an example, that's across the board. It doesn't matter if you're listening to hip hop, country, or what have you. Violence. We live in a violent culture, and it's evident in our popular media.
Well, popular media, it's less a bridge or a conversation than an echo chamber. There's a lot of garbage in that echo chamber, and yet we have these students in Boston Latin who took that and did something to change that. Talk about how there's this potential.
Absolutely. Again, media are tools, right? And those girls, they did something wonderful and powerful, and they use media to amplify their voice and make their voices heard. And that, I think what they did is, in a lot of ways, just a best case scenario or a really great example of media use for the positive and how it could be mobilized for social change.
You talk about media literacy, and you use an interesting definition I've never heard anybody come up with before. You call it the art of curiosity.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, the most powerful punctuation known to man is the question mark, right? It's the beginning of knowledge, and knowledge is the beginning of power, right? So media literacy, the way I approach it, I look at it's a means of critical inquiry, and to that extent, I see it as an art of curiosity, right? Because it's an artful approach to questioning. It's not just looking at something and stating the obvious. It's noticing all the nuances, all the details. So there's I would codify it as an art of curiosity, because there's definitely a rhythm, a mood, a tone, a technique, a craft even to.
Well, Chris, what you're also trying to tell people to do in a way, and this goes back to your video, is to shut off the DJ. So you click it off, and what should they be doing to fill the vacuum?
Sure, yeah. So to fill the vacuum, you're trying to listen for your own heartbeat. And that's the challenge that our youth have today that no other generation has had. They have to figure out who they are and figure out why they're here, what their purpose is, in the midst of a noisy media environment. And I equate that to listening for your heartbeat in a room full of shouting voices all of the time. So in my song, when I talk about turning the DJ off, I'm talking about turning down the volume around you and tuning into your own heartbeat and tuning into who you are, what your purpose is, and what your contribution is to the world.
Right, instead of the noise, you get the message. And if people want to find out more about the message, what's the best way to tune in?
So themessagemovement.com is the website. There you can learn more about the program. There are ways you can get involved. You can give a tax-deductible donation securely over the website. And excuse me, there's lots of ways for youth to get involved as well as adults.
And this is also, it would include even talks in schools and youth organizations. Right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
From The Message, Juma Innis.
All right.
We'll have more news in just a moment.